Hello and welcome to Hawk Talk as we continue to meet the head coaches and personalities around the Monmouth University Athletics Department. I want to thank you for joining me here this evening. I'm Eddie Acapinti, and my guest here this evening is the head men's and women's swimming coach at Monmouth University. Please help me say good evening. It's Coach Matt Nunnally. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Good, Eddie. How are you?
I'm doing well, Coach. Thank you. You know, the weather's getting nicer. We get to spend some time at the beach. So I know that's a place that you're very familiar with. So all is good on my end. How have you been doing as we now transition into really the heart of the summer?
I'm doing well. I'm just trying to keep a normal routine on a daily basis and taking care of myself, making sure I'm getting some exercise and staying on top of work. But overall, doing well. Um, you know, Looking forward to getting back in the office and being around people on campus. But overall, no complaints here.
Well, Coach, I think the one thing that, at least when we kind of dialed in to get ready for our conversation here tonight, that I noticed right away is you maybe have the most impressive quarantine beard that I have seen since we've been doing really any of this. That's a solid. How many days of growth is that, Coach?
I think it was right around March 9th, so just about 100 days. It's been a little bit of a challenge. I've been a couple times where I thought about shaving it off, but still hanging in there.
Well, I am absolutely jealous. I keep the very neat one. I could never do that, Coach. That is quite impressive. If you have a question for Coach Nunnally on the swimming side of things as well as about his time at Monmouth University, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, and I'll make sure to relay those questions over to the men's and women's head swimming coach at Monmouth University and Coach Nunnally. And Coach, before we talk and go into detail about the program and the great growth and trajectory you have this team on, let's first go back. And your season was through the MAC championships when everyone was told to go home and school was moved to remote. So how were those first few really days and weeks when you helped your student athletes get accustomed to going to class and to doing what they are normally used to doing at home?
It was definitely challenging, just in the sense of it's not a normal routine for them. Obviously, for us, we were lucky enough with our season to finish our championships and give our kids the opportunity to go to their big meet of the year and perform well. We actually had just gotten into our first day of our 8-hour portion of the season, our first practice, when things started to move in a direction where they were closing things down. So for our kids, obviously, it was a good thing that they got to swim in their championship meet, but it was definitely a transition for them. I think the big thing was early on just keeping contact with them, making sure that they were making that adjustment well in terms of the online learning and kind of being quarantined in their houses.
And it comes now with a semester where so many student athletes at Monmouth performed admirably academically. And I know your team is no different. Not only is the team coming along and the wins coming in the pool, I know that it's so important to you to have a well-rounded group of student athletes. And how proud were you of their effort in the classroom this spring?
Really proud. I mean, our GPA has continued to progress upward both on the men's and the women's team over the last, say, 5 years. I mean, we've gotten better and better each semester, being recognized as an All-America team. But just the ability for them in sort of an uncertain environment and a change in terms of what's normal for them to stay committed and continue to work and then see the results, really proud of them, the way they carried through on things.
And that'll be a theme in Coach and mine's conversation here this evening, is that process that he has undertaken since being named the head swimming coach at Monmouth University. But we do have the questions starting to come in, and we'll dive right in. Our first question of the evening comes in from Timothy, who is checking in here on our Hawk Talk show this evening. And Coach, Timothy wants to know what you look for in student athletes in recruiting.
Well, obviously, first and foremost, swimming is a very objective sport in terms of performance. We can look at times. We can make comparisons to what's going on in our conference championship and what's going on a national level. So obviously you're going to look at that, and you're looking for kids that can come in and instantly impact your team in a positive way. Kids that have potential to be top 16 A and B finalists in our conference championship. But not only that, you're looking for kids that can be successful in the classroom, Division I athletics, whether it's swimming or any other sport, really requires a lot of very specific time management skills and being able to handle, the amount of time that they have to put into athletics and then also being successful in the classroom. So we're looking for kids that we feel can be successful in both of those areas, being able to balance both of them. And then you're looking for kids that make a positive impact on their community. Kids who are going to come in and work towards helping in the community, volunteering and doing things like that. So for us, we're always looking at those three aspects of our kids and trying to check off those boxes as we recruit them.
And if you want to do just what Timothy did and ask a question of head coach Matt Nunnally, again, please submit it into our Facebook live chat. And coach kind of touched on a few different topics that him and I are going to go over here on our conversation on this 18th episode of Hawk Talk. And coach, we've already heard you reference a few times, obviously the MAC championships and how important things are. And we'll start there before we backtrack, because the most recent MAC championships really do show this chart of progress. This program is on its now the third year in a row where you've bested your finish from the previous year. And this past year had a tremendous individual showing. 5 individuals were named MAC champions at the meet this past year. When you took over, is this kind of the path that you saw this program going on as you built this program from the ground up?
Yeah, I would say, obviously the goal is always to improve and get better. One of the things I felt about Monmouth was it was a place where we could be successful with our program in terms of the campus and the commitment to the athletic programs. And I felt in time, being patient, that we could build a program that could be competitive in our conference and contend for one of those top spots and potentially be a conference champ. One of the things we tried to do is not get too far ahead of ourselves year by year and slowly raise the expectations year by year to the point where we feel as though, we've instilled what is the expectation of a Division I program. So it's been, some unique challenges as we've gone along. But really the idea is, like I said, trying to raise the bar and just continue to improve season by season.
Swimming is in such a unique position at Monmouth, and you'll hear me reference that coach, since it was brought back, is the only coach that the program has known. Obviously, we're all aware of how successful this program was going way back into the 70s. There's Olympians that were on the Monmouth roster, championship upon championship, but when the program came back, it was as it was voted in 2014. That's really what we'll reference. But, Coach, before we kind of move on and get into that and talk about recruits, I do know that the swimming alumni base is one of the most vocal, one of the most proud alumni bases at Monmouth University. So as you brought this program back for kind of its second act, have you had a chance to talk to any of those alums that were so successful in the first stint for Monmouth Swimming?
Sure. For me, just to give you a little background on myself, some of the first swimming that I did was at Monmouth University under Dick Stedman, the head coach back in the 70s. And then Bill Palmer, who took over after Dick Stedman, was my club coach at CJAC, which is the club team that swims out of Monmouth. So, from that standpoint, I swam underneath those coaches and kind of saw, what was successful about Monmouth and kind of felt as though that was something that we could build on. Just the idea of all those great swimmers through the years and trying to pick their brains in terms of, what they liked about Monmouth and what they thought helped them succeed in their program. So yeah, lucky for me, my dad brought me to swim meets as a kid, and I really got to know a lot of those alums from the 70s and the 80s and have a lot of connections to them through life saving and just growing up here at the shore. So more so than just a coach alum relationship, a lot of them are friends of mine and people that, whether I've worked on the beach with them or swam in the pool with them as a youth, it's really afforded me the opportunity to know those people above and beyond just trying to get them involved with the Monmouth swimming program. So yeah, try to make contact with people as much as possible and just kind of keep them up to date on what's going on within the program.
Yeah, Coach, I knew you were local. I knew, you're from Avon, but I didn't realize how deep your ties to this Monmouth swim program historically ran. So I guess you could make the case now, and I feel even that I should have known this, but there was no one more prepared to lead this program when it came back than you to come back home from your previous job at LaSalle.
Yeah, my dad often says that to me, and just how unique a situation it was, and how perfect it worked out in terms of Monmouth bringing the program back and my ability to return to the shore. And I, even after I swam club swimming and moved on and graduated from college, I was a member at the rec center swimming, and I remember Miles Austin lifeguarding in the pool and seeing him there. And then when he joined the Cowboys, obviously them being my favorite football team, was something I look back on and said, wow, he was sitting there lifeguarding as I was swimming. So, just a lot of connections to the university, and just it was a real pleasure to be hired and be a part of the Monmouth community.
And those ties continue, as you mentioned, with Miles being a lifeguard and being a Dallas Cowboy, who happens to be your favorite team. It is so. It seems like every point we make, there's just more dots to connect. It's so interesting. And if you have a question for Matt Nunnally, again, please submit it into our Facebook live chat, as so many of you are doing now, because the questions are starting to pile up. So let's take a little pause from our convo and get into those questions. And one of the obviously most important things a coach can do at the college level is recruit. Kurt is watching this evening, and Kurt, coach, wants to know about the incoming recruits, 5 men, 4 women that will be joining this Monmouth swimming program in the fall.
Yeah, outstanding class. I mean, just building off of what we've done over the last 5 years. Outstanding academically. I feel like all the kids coming in will be successful and help us continue to progress in terms of our outstanding academic performance, but also athletically. They're really kids that are going to have a positive impact on the program. I look at all 9 kids, the 5 guys and 4 girls that are coming in, all have potential to be top 16 scorers, meaning that they could potentially qualify for A and B finals at conference championships. So I anticipate they'll have a positive impact on the program. Obviously, having not worked with them, we'll find out about them when they get to Monmouth and how willing they are to work hard and make the sacrifices necessary to be successful as a swimmer and a Division I athlete. But through the recruiting process, they all are good kids, and I'm excited about the potential that they have to really help us continue to grow our program. Looking at our graduating class from last year, on the men's side, we're not losing a lot of points in terms of conference champ, and same thing on the women's side, and all of the incoming kids have potential to score. So I think that they can help us in terms of continuing to progress up the standings in the conference.
Which, as we said earlier, is something this program has done each of the last 3 years, has began that climb up the MAC standings. And we stick with the theme of recruiting in our next question, and it's someone who's very familiar with the swim program and a regular on checking out our Hawk Talks and also all of the great work that the Monmouth Digital Network does. And Kathleen Simmer is checking in this evening on Hawk Talk. And Kathleen, coach, wants to know, how do you network to reach out to international recruits?
International is a little bit different, and just saying hi to Kathy. That's Mitch Simmer's mom. So Mitch was one of our first athletes on the team, freshman, or I should say first year. He wasn't a freshman, but he came in and swam with us all the way through to his senior year. So he was a big part of the development of the program. But in terms of international athletes, the big thing is a lot of recruiting services send us information. We have people that we've worked with in terms of contacts in those countries, specifically Australia and South Africa are 2 areas that we've brought a lot of kids in from. The big thing is just making contact with them and then using Zoom or Skype, one of the modern pieces of technology in terms of telecommunications, to talk to them from that standpoint. I think one of the things that helps us is having athletes in the program from those countries who can relay back to those kids in terms of, what it's like at Monmouth, how they might fit, what it's like being an international student athlete. So those types of things. So I think that's the big thing, really just using Skype and Zoom to make face-to-face contact with them on a regular basis.
Well, so you were already a pro at this whole being remote, working from home thing. The rest of us have had to figure it out. You've been doing it already.
Yeah, and even my time at LaSalle, we had delved into recruiting international athletes a lot. So yeah, In swimming, it's a worldwide sport, maybe unlike a sport like baseball where you might be limited a little bit more in terms of what you're looking at from an international standpoint. Swimming is worldwide, and there's athletes all over the world looking for the opportunity. I think the big thing for the international athletes, when you look at them, they don't really have an opportunity to continue on beyond what would be high school level swimming, unless they're like a world class athlete who might make world championships or be an Olympic trials type of qualifier. This gives them the opportunity to continue to pursue those athletic endeavors, yet have the opportunity to get an education at the same time. So that's very attractive to a lot of international athletes to be able to continue their careers, which normally might end after their high school and moving on to a job or whatever it might be. And for me, my experience with international athletes is they're typically hardworking kids. They're great academically. They're thankful for the opportunity that they're given to come to another country and continue to pursue their athletic, endeavors. So from that standpoint, it's been really something for us that, we've focused in on.
And if you want to get a peek into the life of a Monmouth University swimmer appropriately today, it really was a swimming takeover day in every way, shape, and form as we're speaking to Coach Nunnally. But if you go over to the athletic department's Instagram page, that's at MU Hawks. And if you don't follow it, you need to follow it right away. But head over there because Katie Parker, sophomore on the women's team, had the takeover today on the story. So if you want to see, and as Coach just said, so many of these athletes do help with the recruiting once they're already here. So if you're out there, you're interested in Monmouth swimming, you can go right over to that Instagram story that Katie is in the midst of doing right now, and just get a glimpse of what a student athlete's life is like in the summer and at home. So please check that out now. And Coach, the questions continue to come in. But while we're on that subject, summer is such an important season for your program. As you and I were talking the other day, getting ready for this, the team competes in the wintertime if you want to give it a season with the NCAA, but summertime is so important for the sport of swimming. You're such an accomplished lifeguard. Many of your staff and players are as well. I know this time of year is really important for the development of your student athletes.
Yeah, swimming is not a 6-month sport. In order to be the best that you can, it's something that you have to do year round. That doesn't mean that you don't have a break at some point to kind of recharge your batteries and heal up any injuries that you might have, or nagging, things like that. But the reality is that it's an ongoing thing, and to be successful on the Division I level, you need to be swimming year round. Challenging for our kids right now, and the fact that pools are not open. You're starting to see outdoor pools opening, so that's positive to allow them to get back in the pool. I think the big thing for our kids right now is really just focusing on aerobic conditioning, trying to keep their weight in check, making sure they have an aerobic base. So when they come back to school, we can build off of that and not have to start from ground zero in terms of their conditioning. We rely on our strength coaches at this point in time a lot because they provide the structure in terms of a lot of the dry land work and strength work that they do. And then you mentioned in terms of the beach patrol, we do have a number of our kids who are involved in beach patrol, and that is a great summer activity for them. There are plenty of competitive opportunities, and just in terms of physical fitness, a lot of things that are very complementary to what we do in terms of swimming. Lifeguards can get out and row, they can paddle a paddle board, they can swim in the ocean, they can run on the beach. All those types of things are very complementary to what you see in terms of swimming. One of the interesting things in my career is a lot of the best rowers at the Jersey Shore in terms of the lifeguard circuit were former swimmers. A guy like Dave Healy, who was a Monmouth alum, was a national champ at the USLA National Lifeguard Championships. He was a swimmer at Monmouth before he even got into a boat, but the muscle groups that are used in rowing are so similar to what you do in swimming that you see that as kids get into the lifeguarding scene and start to pick up rowing and paddleboarding, and how complementary that is. And I think that was a key to my success as a swimmer. Was once my season was over at LaSalle, I came back to the shore and I worked on the beach. and I was able to still have that competitive outlet in terms of lifeguard tournaments and national championships and competing on a world stage, kept me involved in terms of competition, but it was refreshing to not be in a pool staring at a line, swimming back and forth, all day long. And not to say, I mean, obviously, if you're a swimmer, your core activity has to be swimming and you have to be strong there. But I think the summertime gives a lot of our kids an opportunity to, kind of freshen things up a little bit, maybe do something a little bit that'll clear their mind of all the swimming that they do. So a lot of our kids are involved in that, and I'm super supportive of that. And any kid that's looking for a job on the beach, I'm usually willing to help them as far as that goes and point them in the right direction as to what might be a good fit for them in terms of a beach patrol.
Well, and no one really would have more experience at that than yourself, three-time national lifeguard championship team member. And I've seen the workouts because I'm the one in the beach chair with the coffee doing nothing, and I see the workouts that's being done. Coach, they are very intense when those competitive lifeguards get out and train.
Sure, just as much as any other athlete, there's a competitive aspect to life saving that takes it to a pretty high level, whether it's on a national or an international level, whether it's a world championship or a U.S. national championship, and just even on the local level. Here in Monmouth County, we've had, like you said, multiple national championship teams competing against Los Angeles County in California, who's been the dominant team over the last 30 years. I think the only 3 times they didn't win the nationals was when Monmouth County knocked them off. So, strong lifeguarding tradition here in Monmouth County, and a great way to spend your summers. I mean, for me, it was a natural fit as a 16-year-old kid in St. Rose High School as a swimmer to start working on the beach, and did it for 29 years full time, and then got the job at Monmouth. And I still work down in Avon here in my hometown. I pick up a day once every 2 weeks and just trying to stay involved and hopefully be able to give some of my experiences and mentor some of the younger kids in terms of, what a great job it is first and foremost, and also the positive impact you have on your community in terms of keeping people safe.
And it's a pretty cool cross training that you can take from the pool to the sand. The questions continue to come in for Matt Nunnally, and we get right back to those questions now. Susan is watching our Hawk Talk here this evening, and Susan, we appreciate that. And Coach, she wants to know about practice a little bit, kind of your practice schedule. Is it broken down by sprint, by distance? What is the dry land program like? And do the men and the women get to train together?
We've done a mix of things. Typically, at the point we are now, our men and women have not trained together the last 2 seasons. Our first few seasons, the team was so small that we trained together. Looking towards next year, we're going to move to a little bit more specialized setup with our middle distance swimmers. So we'll have some crossover with the men and the women, but for the most part, they do train separately. Typically for us, just to give you a breakdown on a weekly practice schedule, we have 9 sessions per week, typically 6 in the pool, 3 on dry land and strength. Although next year we're going to move to a few more pool sessions for some of our middle distance and longer distance swimmers. And typically throughout the course of the week, we work different energy systems. So Monday would be an aerobic day, Tuesday anaerobic, and then Wednesday we would get up and swim off the blocks a fair amount. Thursday is typically recovery and drill. Friday we typically are heading into a dual meet or something on the weekend, so maybe we'll shorten things up a little bit there, do some quick high intensity stuff, and then a lot of times on Saturday we are racing. And then mixed in with that, typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or possibly Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, depending upon the week. We double up with swimming and strength. So we keep our kids pretty busy. We go typically right up to the 20 hours per week that we're permitted of required activity, and follow through on the 6 days that we're allowed as well.
If you have a question for Matt Nunnally, again, please submit it into our Facebook live chat as the questions are coming in. And that's been a couple now, recruiting questions, practice questions. So it's good to see that folks are excited for the future of this program, Coach, as I know that you are as well. We've mentioned it a few times how the team has improved at the MAC championships each of the last 3 years. Individuals now doing things that have never been done since Monmouth has been in the MAC. You know what it takes to win in the MAC. You won 4 championships at LaSalle when you swam. So now, with that championship pedigree, with your great experience there, now as you forecast this Monmouth program forward, I know there's a lot of talent in this program that will be coming back next year to join those great recruits that you spoke of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, those kids that are coming in really have the potential to impact our program and help us continue to rise in the standings. Um, you always go in with that goal to continue to improve and get better on the scoreboard. First and foremost, it's going to come down to building a group that's willing to come in and work hard towards those goals on a daily basis. And I have the utmost confidence that this incoming group and returning athletes will do that. I think one of the things that the athletes that we've recruited over the last 2 to 3 years have raised the bar in terms of expectations of what we do in practice on a daily basis. And that's reflected in our dual meet success and also our championship meet success.
And coach, I'm curious because you were a very successful coach as a head coach at LaSalle. You come over to Monmouth. We've mentioned how swimming it came back when you were named the head coach. So again, with no slight to the alums from the past, there are some individuals in the building that you work with when we're allowed to go there that started programs, and Coach Callahan with football and Coach Fisher with lacrosse. And there's others that have been around for so long. And I just wondered, did you have a chance to pick any of their brains as far as what it was like to build a program from scratch, as well as taking your own experiences from having such a successful run yourself at LaSalle?
You know, one of the things I did when I was in the process of applying to Monmouth was I did reach out to Coach Fisher and spoke to him in advance of interviewing at Monmouth. And he was very insightful in terms of some of the pitfalls and different things that he faced in terms of challenges as a startup program and building things. You know, a little different with us that there was no club swimming. So we were pretty much starting from scratch and recruiting kids. A lot of internal recruiting, but yeah, I relied a lot on whether it was Coach Fisher, Coach Joe, the old track coach, Coach Turner with women's soccer. I'm right across the hall from both of them, and they were people who I relied on a lot in terms of questions about how things worked at Monmouth and the success that they've had at the university and how we could incorporate some of those things into our program. You know, one of the things I think and the big challenge was setting realistic goals for our team as we started and not setting such high goals that we weren't achieving anything and demoralizing our kids from that standpoint. So year by year, we tried to slowly raise the bar in terms of the expectations that we had, challenging our kids and setting high goals, but also goals that we knew that they had the potential to achieve so that they would see success and see the growth of the program in the right direction. And everybody in Monmouth has been so supportive. It's a great community in terms of the coaches, the staff, you know, whether it's sports information, whether it's sports medicine, academic support, administration. Everybody has really been helpful and supportive in terms of what we're trying to do. And I think one of the big things was when I interviewed at Monmouth, the two people that I met with specifically outside of the search committee, which was a large group of coaches and administrators, but I sat with Dr. McNeil and Coach Turner, and just the feeling that Monmouth was willing to do it, whether it was from an administrative standpoint or coworkers, what it took to help a program be successful, giving you the tools to do what you needed to do to succeed as a program. And I found that to be really helpful and just a great community at Monmouth overall.
So from that point, and you know, it's kind of funny. You know, I was getting ready for this, and it's quick. It happens quick. How quickly the years can kind of go by. It seemed like literally just the other day that swimming was coming back, and that you were named head coach. Has it flown by for you as well?
Yeah, you know, it really has. You know, I lived in Philadelphia for well over 20 years in my life. You know, I grew up at the shore. My lifestyle, I love things associated with the ocean, whether it's, you know, being on a paddleboard or a kayak or a rowboat, those types of things. So I adapted when I was in Philadelphia, but the opportunity to come back to Monmouth and be here has really been exciting for me. I'm in a good place in terms of I love where I live, I love where I work, and those are really important things, especially as you get later in your career. The younger you are, you're kind of you put your head down and you're just pushing forward and working as hard as you can in terms of trying to succeed and establish yourself as a coach and establish your program. As you get a little bit older, you start to realize that you got to soak in some of those other things and enjoy the experiences that go along with where you live and where you work. So yeah, it has flown by. I think a big part of that is I've been able to reconnect with a lot of friends who, not that I didn't have connections with them, but now that I'm back at the shore, I get to see them on a more regular basis. You know, friends that I had in the lifeguarding community and being able to whether it's ride my bike with them or go for a run or get out in the rowboat, those types of things. So just being able to reconnect with people in the community has been, really fun for me. So the time has flown by. It's hard to believe that this year we'll be heading into my 6th year.
And it's appropriate too that you called Philadelphia home for so many years, and this program is doing what that city made famous. And our coworker Mark Morbin is with me here this evening. He'll appreciate this, but that you indeed have trusted the process to get to this point and to have this program ready to go for great things. But it leads me into the next question that comes in on our viewers. And Coach, we have to ask this. Lynn in Jackson wants to know, how do you grow up in this area, spend so much time in Philly, but yet you're a Dallas Cowboys fan?
I always get asked that question. It's a pretty simple answer to that. My dad was a huge Roger Staubach fan. He was big on naval history, and Roger Staubach is his hero. There's no doubt about it. We actually still get in conversations in terms of my dad thinks that Roger Staubach is the best quarterback that ever played professional football. And I tend to argue that might not be the case. He might be skewed a little bit there, but his love for the Cowboys, me and my brother, my mom, every Sunday, we were an NFL family. We would sit and watch NFL games. And obviously the Cowboy game was the highlight of the week. So just picked it up from him. And luckily for me, they were so successful through the 90s when I was in my 20s and 30s that I was hooked. And it hasn't changed. It's been a roller coaster ride the last 15 years or so, but I have hope that they'll get it done one of these years.
Well, I want everyone to hear that answer. If you missed Coach's answer, you can go back. You can watch it on monmouthhawks.com. You can be in the video tab here on Facebook. That is the only acceptable answer to be from New Jersey and be a Cowboys fan. Was that answer right there? There are no other ones. The questions continue to come in for Matt Nunnally. The next question comes in from Philadelphia, and Nick is in Philadelphia and checking out our Hawk Talk. And Nick, Coach, wants to get your opinion on what you feel the ceiling is for this Monmouth University swimming program, and is a conference championship in the near future a realistic goal?
Well, obviously that's the goal that we set, is to be a conference championship team. It's not going to happen overnight, and I think you've kind of seen in terms of how the program has progressed that it takes step by step. Right now, I think the big thing for us is to try to move into the top 3 in the conference on both the men's and the women's side. That will give us confidence in terms of our ability to compete with those top teams. But yeah, that's the ultimate goal. I think Monmouth is a place where we can build a successful program that can compete on that level. Recruiting kids, my experience has been that most kids that come to Monmouth, and I shouldn't even say most, I think all kids that we've had like the school. We don't have to sell them too hard on the location and what Monmouth has to offer. It's just a matter of finding the right fit. So from that standpoint, I do feel as though we can build a program that can contend for a conference championship, hopefully here in the next couple of years.
The next question comes in, and it's a bit more localized to us, as that last one came in from Philadelphia. This next question comes in a little closer to the shore, and Stephanie is in Colts Neck this evening. And Stephanie wants to know, Coach, who are some of the people who have had the biggest impact on you in your coaching career?
The people that I've worked with, obviously, I worked with I started my career at Seton Hall as an assistant coach. I was there for 5 years in the late 90s, and I worked with Brian Ippolito, hired me back in 1995, I guess it was, and I worked with Brian for 2 years, and then Rick Simpson, who's now the head coach at Villanova, was head coach there with me for 3 years. So really learned a lot from those two. Brian really taught me a lot in terms of people skills and what it takes in terms of dealing with athletes and being able to communicate. Rick came in and really taught me a lot in terms of preparation, making sure that you're prepared in terms of what you're going to bring to the kids on a daily basis. And then my sports administrator, who was senior associate AD at LaSalle, John Lyons, he was my coach at LaSalle for 4 years and then hired me as head coach. He actually retired, moved to senior associate AD, and I was hired at that point. So luckily for me, I had somebody in the building at LaSalle who had a great career in terms of coaching athletes and success, and was able to rely on him for 15 years. He just retired last December. So he was really a mentor for me. He was the perfect coach for me because I had coaches in high school specifically who were very into discipline and, kind of yelling and screaming and coaching through fear a little bit, which was more common, I would say, back in the 90s and the 80s. Whereas my college coach was a little bit more laid back. He knew what it took in terms of me to get me to succeed and kind of coach me that way. So John Lyons has always been a great mentor for me and somebody that I relied on throughout my time at LaSalle. Since I've come to Monmouth, the two coaches that I mentioned earlier, Coach Joe and Coach Turner, have been super helpful. Obviously, coaches that have won many, many conference championships at Monmouth obviously have a great handle on their program and what they need to do to succeed. So it's been great being right down the hall from them and being able to talk to them in terms of questions that I might have or experiences that we're having, and seeing that they go through the same thing, and hopefully give you hope that you can build your program to be as successful as theirs.
And one of the things, and it's a theme I think of this entire conversation that I picked up especially, it has been, Coach, your ability to build these long-lasting, lifelong relationships, whether it was coming back to the shore and reconnecting with folks, your ties to the Monmouth program historically, or that your college coach then hired you to be a coach. So it's a pretty evident thing throughout your life in college athletics and in coaching that you build some great relationships and you rely on people that are close to you.
Yeah, I think you're crazy if you don't. There's a lot of great resources and great people out there who can really help you. And I've been lucky that there have been a lot of people who have been loyal to me. I think part of it is I try to work hard and I try to do a good job at whatever it is that I'm tasked with. And when you do that, I think people recognize that. And I think that people recognize that hopefully you can bring something positive to your program and your university.
Well, Coach mentioned earlier that, and he explained why he's a Dallas Cowboys fan. But Coach, my next question is going to take us kind of a different route. I'm a New York Giant fan. I'm a big Eli Manning fan. So I have to ask you about your time in graduate school at Ole Miss. How was it down in Oxford?
It was different. Yeah, it was a whole different world than being in Philadelphia. I was attracted there on the idea of big-time football, big-time SEC athletics. Being at LaSalle, we had a strong basketball program, but there was no football program. And, really was interested in that experience. I mean, it's a different world, that's for sure, just culturally and in terms of the size of the school. But really the idea to be able to go and see SEC football and baseball and that high level of sport drew me there. I would tell you this, Eddie, I'm a big fan of Eli Manning. I didn't root for him much when he was playing for the Giants, but had a lot of respect for him and obviously the ties to Ole Miss. I really followed his career quite closely. Typically 2 Sundays out of the year, and probably every other Sunday I was pulling against them for the most part. But big fan of the Manning family in general. I think they're just class individuals and guys who show you work hard and commit yourself to something that it will lead to success.
Well, Coach, it's been very, your career up to this point, as we've detailed here in the program, it really has been fascinating, and all of the different connections that have along the way led you back to the shore, led you to Monmouth. It really has been super interesting to hear about, and I really want to thank you for giving us some time here this evening. It was a lot of fun just even catching up with you, and I do appreciate it and wish you continued health.
Thanks, Eddie. I enjoy it, and hopefully we'll be seeing each other face to face here in the near future.
Oh, Coach, I can't wait for that moment. Back in the office, maybe in the kitchen, right by my office.
You won't see this beard anymore once I'm back on campus. It's coming off the day I have to go back.
Well, so you heard it here then. And if you want to see that beard again, and if you missed any of our conversation here this evening, please check it out, monmouthhawks.com. It's as well as in the video tab right here on the Monmouth Athletics Facebook page, as well as on our YouTube channel. For the head swimming coach at Monmouth University, Matt Nunnally, I'm Eddie Acapinti, saying goodnight on Hawk Talk.